All right, that's 4 o'clock on the bell. I just want to address the audience real quick. When you come up to present to the board, please make sure that you sign in on the sign-in sheet. And please make sure to speak into the microphone so that I can hear you if I need to clarify any of your statements during the transcription of minutes of the meeting, because we do produce minutes. So I will turn it over to the chairman to call this to order, and we should be getting started right now.
All righty, thank you all for coming tonight for the Town of Somerville Design Review Board, April 20th, 2023 meeting. Our first order of business is the approval of the March 16th minutes. Is there a motion for approval?
Motion approval.
Seconded by Hart. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All righty, we'll start with old business, which is 800 North Main Street. As Tim said, as you would step up and write your name on the list and state your role in the project. But that's the Kickin' Chicken.
Yeah, so this is a request for final approval for exterior renovations to the existing Kickin' Chicken restaurant located at 800 North Main Street. This is their second presentation to the board. They were last here in March and they received preliminary approval. They following our staff's comments, design is to be consistent with the existing design aesthetic. The roof material has changed from the 5V to a standing seam metal roof. The siding is to match the existing color and profile. Stained wood is to be used as screening in the rear. The shed roof awning will be replaced with a red hanger rod metal canopy. Corrugated metal siding on the tower is proposed to be removed and replaced with painted board and batten. The roof on the tower will be changed from a front-facing gable to cross gable style roof. Entrance doors have been centered on the gables as requested by the DRB at the last meeting. And new and expanded screening is being provided for rooftop materials. No major changes to the site are proposed beyond the minor expansion of the existing patio seating area to the side. There should be no change in the depth of the patio or to the existing drive aisle as was kind of presented in the previous application. So as you can see here, this is actually a little bit better representation than this meeting. You can see that the depth of the patio isn't changing. They're just adding a little section off to the side. At this point, if the applicant is here, we can turn it over to him and let him go through the changes that were made to that.
Thanks, Tim. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Justin Fight. I'm the architect. I've worked on several projects for Kickin' Chicken, Dorchester Road, probably the closest to this one. We're excited, like I said last time, to update the building. We've done a few things to enhance the project based on board comments last time. And the first one, I think we were a little not on the same page. I had a drawing that showed an enlargement of the front patio on the previous visit, and I did not think that you guys were looking at that. So updated site plan shows the proper size of the new patio, which matches the old patio exactly footprint wise. We are expanding left and right so that it covers the main entrance now and the new entrance that we're adding on the right side of the front facade. So the patio does not extend towards Main Street any further than it does now, but it does extend to the left and the right further. So that's the only change that you'll really notice on the site plan. We're replacing the walk-in coolers in the back. They're old, kind of poorly running units. So those will be replaced and new screening will be built in the back. That pretty much sums up the site plan. Tim, thanks for moving along. I've included the floor plans again, demo floor plan showing the future phase 2 of the project. which is some interior changes that include moving the bar out to the patio so that it's an indoor-outdoor bar, sort of typical of newer kickin' chickens throughout Charleston, Somerville, North Charleston area. And then some upgrades inside in terms of booth seating, furniture, and finishes. But that doesn't really apply to this proposal. It's really just an exterior renovation proposal. What we've changed on the exterior really focuses on the patio roofing, the tower, and the two new entrances. So 3 changes to highlight here are the roofing material is now, instead of a 5V crimp, we're using a snap lock standing seam. And instead of leaving the corrugated siding on the tower, we're showing a proposed replacement of hardy board and batten. And we'll do everything we can to hide the seams. There may be some horizontal seams in those hardy panels, and we'll do everything we can to hide them. If we can't do that, it'll probably be just really thin metal flashing where those seams occur. The board recommendation was to center the 2 new double door openings, one under the tower and the other under the gable on the right of the facade. And we've done both of those. And we think the project is enhanced by those comments and these new changes. The only other thing to note on the tower is that we're proposing, like Tim said, a cross gable, which really kind of highlights that volume on all 4 sides. As you drive around the property, you see the new red roof. And I think a more iconic form for the tower. One of the board comments was to make sure that we were screening the mechanicals on the roof. So I've got a note here showing screening on the roof if necessary. I've also provided some photos that, thanks Tim. These photos should help show that the extended parapets appear that they are going to cover all of the mechanical units from public street view. But I've included that note for the screening. If necessary, we will provide additional screening. So if those aren't making sense, the thin dotted red line shows the extended parapets. New pages in the submittal set. There's one just above. This one shows the snap lock standing seam, the paint material palette for the project. And then the next sheet shows details of how the patio structure will be built using wood columns, wood beams, and custom powder coated metal connectors. These connectors at the base and the cap of each column will be exposed. They're thick metal and they're powder coated black. We will conceal all of the other fasteners for the rafters. I think that sums it up. Thank you.
Cool.
You did everything we asked, looks good.
Thanks on architecture.
I think it looks good. Just one minor comment, the scale of the light fixtures on the facade and the height that they're shown to be mounted at seem a little disconnected. They seem very high for the scale of the fixture. Are you trying to illuminate the sidewalk or the building?
Sidewalk. So we can definitely lower, looks like we can lower all of them, if I'm not mistaken, and we will do that.
Thank you. Looks good.
Matt? Andy?
Tim, can you go back to the site plan, please? Okay, so I just want to confirm that that front porch is not extending any further out into the parking lot.
That's
It is
correct.
currently,
That's correct. The footprint,
yeah, right here.
I think that's the same as.
this is the existing floor plan. This is the proposed.
Gotcha. Okay.
But yes, you're correct. No further towards Main Street.
All right. I don't have any comments. That's good.
If those lights are gooseneck lights, if they're 14 feet off the ground, that's normal height.
14?
Yeah.
Okay. I think they're a bit higher than that on the elevations as shown currently, so I'll
They,
make sure
they,
they're
they
lower.
work great at 14
Cool.
or less.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, any other comments?
No, that's good.
They are seeking final approval. Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion for final.
There's a second.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, good job. Thank you. Next up is 155 Droz Road, the 70 townhouse community.
So this is a request for preliminary approval for a proposed new 70 townhouse community on 7.25 acres. Currently, the property is undeveloped. It's located on the south side of Droz Road, just north of the Food Lion on Central Avenue. The tree removal permit and tree protection board approval have been obtained at this time. The landscape plan has been provided and proposed landscape appears to meet requirements. The proposal for a new 70-unit townhome development is spread, the 70 units are spread across 15 buildings. Buildings are 4 or 5 unit configurations. The amenity center and pool is also included. Units are rear access, alley fed with a 1-car garage, 6, and I'd like to point out here, I've been corrected. Those front porches are actually have been revised to 8 feet, not 6 feet. The side elevations have windows, proposed shutters appear to meet operable width requirement. The horizontal and board and batten siding, roofing materials include architectural shingles and standing seam on porch roofs. The amenity center details include metal and shingle roofs. Site amenities include a pool, dog park, and walking paths. Oops, sorry. Staff suggests that the applicant explore the possibility of installing a pedestrian connection to the Food Lion Shopping Center to the south, if possible. This would provide a wanted pedestrian connectivity and potentially reduce traffic on Droz Road and Central Avenue. I know that the townhouse development to the side here, Hemingway Circle, etc., actually has a pedestrian connection through their fence to the Food Lion Shopping Center on the side. So if it were possible, and that is entirely, it's just an ask, it's not going to be a specific requirement. It would be a good amenity to have to allow residents to walk to the shopping center instead of having to go and get in their cars, drive on Droz Road, which is kind of substandard, and then go out to Central. And so it was just a suggestion. So the applicant is here and I can turn it over to them.
Thanks, Tim. Really appreciate it. Jeff Roberts from JJR Development, and I have with us via video the project team architect, Daryl Patterson, who's a great friend who we do many things with, Marie Freer, landscape architect, outdoor spatial design, and Patrick Head, my right hand and director of development. Thanks for the privilege of being able to present this for preliminary in front of Design Review Board. And before we start, I'd like to say that what we came here for conceptual was very helpful, and the general suggestions and tweaks that you all recommended, we actually put into play, and it made it a better project. And quite frankly, what we did the driveway access, made it more inviting, wraparound porches, and it took a little extra time to bring it back for preliminary because those 8-foot porches involved some jiggling on the civil plan to get it just right, because the site with the alleys and the sidewalks and the pedestrian connectivity was something we really, is very important to us on a project of this nature. So it took a little extra time, but we think adding that extra dimension of the 8-foot porches adds for more livability and enhancement to the experience. This is also just for everyone to understand at this juncture, we view this project as most probable to be highly likely, 99% to remain as a for sale product for a missing middle type of homeownership, and not a rental product, fee simple. So we view it as a nice, small, wonderful community that will all interact with one another and have great pedestrian interactivity, socialization. And we will look at Tim's suggestion. We are all about walkability in something like this, but if we can look at it and look at the site and see how we can make that happen without running into easement issues with a food line and safety issues. We love the fact that things would be walkable and have that type of connectivity. So for that, I will turn it over to Patrick, my head of development. We'll go through the slides, and Daryl Patterson's on the phone in the red dress video watching you all, and Marie Freer will make the landscape presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Just, Tim, if you want to just go to the next slide. So just to refresh the board's memory, the site is behind the Food Lion, close to Parsons and Central, off of a small county road called Droz Road. Next slide. Just to give you a little bit of context of what the site currently looks like. To the right is our site. To the left is the back of another housing development that has no access to Droz Road. So it's just a tree line and fences. You can kind of click through these fairly quickly. And that's one of the neighboring houses. And that's the neighborhood behind with the fence that I mentioned. So to just kind of give an overview of the site, we had some renderings put together. This is looking at it kind of above Droz Road coming from Parsons. And you can see the general layout. It's, as we've mentioned the last time we were here, sort of rear alley access to all the units. And then units face into either a street or public space, with the main amenity being kind of that open, large space around the pool. And then we've got a dog park down there near the pond. You can kind of see the lighter green is actually our fire truck turnaround, which we are proposing on the grass pave for the fire truck T. So it's, isn't just paving. And then next slide. This is as you approach the site from Droz Road. This is the general depth of the porches, which is 8 feet, which I think was a great idea by the board, make them a little bit deeper and more livable. Next slide. And this is our entry off of Droz, where you can see we took the board's other suggestion of the wraparound porches, which I really think made the entry look really cool and sort of lead you into that the clubhouse that you see at the end, which I think is new on this submission. Next slide. This is another shot internal of the site showing the clubhouse, and kind of see the pool off the distance. One thing that came about in our review with the tree board, that their suggestion was to try to keep pockets of the large pine trees that are on site. So we tried to show those in the renderings. There's definitely a bunch of groupings around the amenity area, and then also along the front, the road frontage, we tried to keep as many of those large pine trees as possible, and at the back of the site as well. Fine. This view shows the townhouses that front onto that green space, which the goal was to keep it open as possible for kids to be able to play and kick ball, or just kind of hang out. And the building to the right is the pool, clubhouse, and amenity area. Slide. And then this is just another view of the site, kind of get a sense of the layout. And similar from the front, showing that entryway. And next slide. I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you. I'm Marie with Outdoor Spatial Design, and thank you for your time today. and I'll chat with you guys a little bit about the landscape plan. So what you're looking at is our conceptual plan. It's showing the existing trees. They've kind of got a white middle, and the proposed trees. And we work with the tree board hand in hand to kind of go back and forth and save a lot of the existing trees and clusters and things like that. So you'll see a lot of those exist in sort of that grand lawn space there, which we think will be a nice little picnic area. We've been able to do our mitigation that's required. And something about the sort of the aesthetic landscape that I want to draw your attention to is, this will be turned over to an HOA at some point. And so the goal of doing landscape architecture in a community like this is to do something that's aesthetic, but that's easily maintained. And you're sort of thinking long-term maintenance, long-term growth, things like that. So in our sort of more detailed submissions, you'll see a lot of things that do not require a lot of maintenance, that don't grow over the building, the facades or into the windows and things like that. We do a lot of work with communities that, later on down the road, they just have a mess. So we're just trying to think long-term with this. And we got some great suggestions from the tree board about some of the types of materials that they'd like to see. So where we can incorporate things like azaleas and things that, Somerville is known for, that we can kind of just let go. We're selecting and showing to do that. And then around the houses themselves, a little more, wispy, some grasses and ground covers and things that will not require constant shaping and things like that. So it's a pretty simple landscape plan that we're proposing, but we think the street trees, the understory flowering trees, and then the nice mix of textures with the grasses and the ground covers will make this a really nice community visually. So here's a couple of just some of the trees that we're thinking maybe for some of the canopy trees. We want a mix of some things that are native, some things that are not, just to kind of give us a little bit of visual difference. We've got a pond, so we're thinking maybe some bald cypress, maybe some magnolia for the evergreens, but then something more, column-like for a street tree that'll, with time, give a nice canopy and shade to build it.
Okay, excellent. Again, this just is a diagram highlighting some in yellow the trees that the existing trees that we tried to save. Next slide. This is the light that we've chosen. We're working with Dominion to provide on-site lighting around the community. This is the one that we'd like to use. Next slide. This is from our conceptual submission to some context or inspirational images. Next slide. Okay, so this is new to the submission. This is the clubhouse. This is the front entry. The palette for most of the townhouses, I think before we've shown that they're going to be kind of blues and grays and whites and sort of kind of a calm palette. And in the clubhouse, we decided to have something that contrasts that a bit. So we're looking at this kind of more taupey gray color. Next slide. And it also has a standing seam roof on the porch roof, and then a architectural roof on the palette. And then again, this is the front colored elevation of the townhouses. So the idea would be that moving around the neighborhood, we're going to use these colors as the palette. So we're not going to introduce other colors, but we will change on each building, or at least let's say 3 buildings, how the colors relate to each other. But we didn't want to use too many colors and make it look, like a candy bowl. So, next slide. And this is the side and rear elevations. And this just shows the corner porch on the units that have those. Next slide. And from here, it's more of a technical set. So if you guys would like to go through it. We're happy to answer questions. This includes the landscape, civil plans and the DD drawings for the townhouses.
What was the siding material?
It's a lap siding and board back.
Okay.
Already or similar, I guess.
And could you submit a lighting plan?
We don't have a finalized lighting plan, just the lights that we're gonna focus on. We'll have that next edition.
I just encourage you to light the entrance so that you can see the road as you're exiting or entering the property.
Yeah, we agree. And well, for the next submission, we'll have the whatever signage we're gonna propose along with the lighting of that signage, lighting that. Sure. We'll bring all that.
Could you explain the rationale on the clubhouse? Did you consider the entire roof standing seam versus just the front porch?
I think it was just in keeping with the rest of the neighborhood, that all the other units, that's, the front porches have a standing seam and the entire roof is architectural shingle.
The other comment I had was, well, I think historically standing seam would be used for the entire roof system, not just the front. To me, or not just the porch. To me, that's something that's been come on the last few years. It's just standing seam on the porch. It looks a little odd to me. The other thing that strikes me about the building, while it looks pretty good, is it seems like it's on grade and it's very flat. And to be much more accurate, it would need to at least appear that it's on a crawl space. I know that has some challenges, but that's just my initial impression when I saw it.
Yeah.
It does look a little flat.
They will be raised slabs. And it will be higher. I think I could let Daryl answer that question, but the drawing, I agree, it's a lower.
I think in drawing could be unintentionally characterizing it and sort of example. Negative flat.
If you painted that water table detail white versus a siding color, then it would stand out and look more like you had a foundation. So that's a very simple thing to do, and put some details, some cap details on the water table. The water table ought to be 12 inches and you can do that easy.
Is that pond meant to be filled to the extent that it's shown?
The rendering company, I had already gotten them to lower it. It will not be that full all the time, but it will be a wet pond.
And as far as site lighting is, are you intending to put site lighting along Droz all along your frontage?
That will be a discussion with Dominion and that road, county road, so I think we'll have to get that. I don't know the distance of that, to be honest, but internally, site, we want to like roads.
And could you go to the site plan again, or something that does show Droz? Because I had that question as well.
Going back to TRC,
You know, I like to know that Droz is there.
Yeah.
They got a big wooden fence.
And to the south is Food Lion, Lion South, right? Okay.
Yeah.
How far, say on this, is
So if you look at
property line? Just in,
the property line,
Mhm.
it's fairly close to the back of our plant.
see it right there. Okay, so you haven't, I'm sure you thought of it, but you probably want to screen that as well as you can. Right, so you're not looking at the back of the food line. Is that reflective in the landscaping?
Definitely is not going to be an enhancement to our ability.
Right.
We-
With the last one sold.
Screening it so you don't have to carve the base of the food line. Is a definite value enhancement to the whole.
Right.
Food,
We spent a lot of time on.
Jeff, you've got a pretty good bit of woods on Billy Walker's property with the Food Lion owner. He's got about 40, 50 feet of woods between you and them. So that you got a good natural screen already.
Yeah, if you look at the GIS plan that Tim provided at the very beginning, you can see that there's two parcels that the food line sits on. That sort of odd L shape is undeveloped and just trees. And then the food line itself. And while it's not heavily wooded, those are mostly large live oaks on that site, that piece of property. And then we do anticipate site fence.
Can we go back to the site plan? So I see you made this a pedestrian oriented front door.
Yeah.
Community, which is great. Except for buildings L and M are looking at the backside of buildings O and M.
Yeah.
Any solution or thoughts you had about how to minimize their view of garages?
Definitely the trickiest spot. We did try to introduce some street trees by, I think in the last presentation, we took out some parking spaces and put street trees there to help buffer it. And then we actually, we're gonna have this discussion and try to get some plants at the demising wall line of the garages, but it's not just the back of the garage. So we are looking at that spot.
So are you looking at any architectural facade solutions or is it all landscape?
What do you mean by architectural facades?
Whether to enhance the back. Right now, it looks like a very long shed. I don't know if you want to go to the rear elevations. And also the differentiation between units. You did a great job. Right. I'll leave that up to your architect, but you did a great job in the front
Yeah.
and breaking up the facades. But the back, just a different color along the same facade.
Yeah.
And especially under one roof. I don't think you're accomplishing what you accomplished on the front. So maybe you can look at that.
Well, our goal is to accomplish really good proportional excellence in design, so those judgments. Daryl, do you want to weigh into that? Never mute the architect.
Snafu.
Yes, especially on the two buildings that the basement porch. L and M.
That are visible from the apartments.
We can definitely study.
Yeah.
We appreciate the suggestion because any enhancements that we can give it with proportionality by putting some brain power and some creativity in design certainly improves the project and enhances it. So we sweat the details and we appreciate it. It's a good suggestion. Definitely worth a significant dive into it. We like the suggestion.
Thank you.
As you move forward, I think it'd be good for us to see, and certainly for you to consider where your HVAC and electrical meter locations are and how they relate to landscaping, just to kind of make sure they're hidden appropriately if they need to be hidden. And transformers as well. That'll, all of a sudden, those will be in the way.
We work hand in glove with Dominion and our civil engineer before the borough is not their first rodeo, so we sweat those details too. Excellent. We're not letting Dominion design the aesthetics.
No comment. That's great. Any other comments?
Can you talk a little bit about the parking situation the 70 units, single car garages, know that most people don't actually park in their garage. I counted like 42 parking spaces.
So you go back to the state. So I'll just point out that the tan color next to each garage is also a parking space. Every unit has
Two spaces.
two spaces, and then all the perimeter. The agreed parking is always a challenge on every project. We try to provide access on two spaces.
Other than the spaces, the parallel spaces that are shown on the road, is there room for parking on the road on the house side? Or this is really only wide enough for two-way traffic and a parking lane?
Well, because of the garages, there's not really an opportunity for parking in front of them like that.
I agree.
So, around the perimeter, you have parallel spots. On the top internal road, you've got some pull-in, on that first amenity space, and then in between buildings A, C, D, and D. And then also obviously at the clubhouse. Yeah, parking is always a challenge, but we try to provide as much.
We also try to provide as much green space as possible and pervious cover and whatnot, as opposed to cover this thing completely with asphalt. So we try to get just sort of the sweet spot. We were creating substantial green space, common area, as well as satisfactory amount of parking, if we would design something that we thought was parking obsolescence, if that would affect marketability. So we really studied this. And really tried to add what we thought was a really good complement of parking, but also a fairly substantial amount of space.
So in your analysis, how many parking spaces are you providing?
You have to go to some plan. I quickly counted, it looks like it's 55 outside of the unit spaces. There's seven there.
That's what you got is about 50 or 55 outside of the unit spaces. Then you got 2 per unit. That's more than enough parking. That's plenty of parking.
195.
That's plenty of parking if they actually park in the garage.
They're gonna have to park in a garage. Force them to.
So I'm asking, you're comfortable that you could fit 140 cars in there potentially?
Yes, and there's actually, if we weren't comfortable with the adequate number of parking, we'd have a project that was obsolete, and the first rule of real estate is try not to lose money. And the second and third rule is try not to lose. And so we want things that in industry of commerce that are not functionally obsolete. We wouldn't do it. So we think we have a very substantial adequate number of parking, probably with a bit of a surplus, but also preserve the green space. And didn't sacrifice that. So that's where we struck, what we thought we would strike the balance.
Who do you foresee parking in the parking field next to the clubhouse? Is that for general visitors of units or is that for the clubhouse?
For guests and visitors. I mean, for the clubhouse.
I mean, the clubhouse is not open to anybody
Right.
but the
Yeah.
the owners.
So to me, it seems extraneous, perhaps, creating another asphalt field for parking next to that clubhouse, perhaps. I don't know if you thought of any other amenities. Maybe more green.
Well, I think you definitely need some. There are people that are gonna load mobility issues or load the kids in the car and drive to the pool. Or friends are gonna come over and meet them at the pool. And that's where they're gonna park.
Yeah, Amazon.
Well, that field of parking is screened from the public view, which is our goal. It's private view. It's for the people that live there. That's where it needs to be. They can see it. Nobody else can.
Yeah.
So.
Any other comments?
Have you guys had any traffic study or traffic impact done? Or are you gonna be?
Study from the finest traffic engineer in the state of South Carolina, Jennifer Beal. There's no measurable increase in traffic, no road improvements according to this deal. As a matter of fact, on her chart is on this measurable differential.
Okay.
No other comments or seeking preliminary approval?
Make a motion preliminary approval. Comments noted.
That's a standard approval with conditions, so to speak, or at least considering the recommendations by the board and staff. Candy seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, good job.
We appreciate the
Thank
time
you.
and consideration and the thoughtful suggestion which collaboration is making this a better project.
You all done a great job, so it's easy to have the conversation, so thank you.
We appreciate it.
Next, under new business is 1590 Old Trolley Road Arby's.
So actually 1590 Old Trolley Road and 329 North Main Street. Both of these, I think what we can do is kind of combine the discussion. We can get into specifics and we'll have separate votes on them, but the architecture is very similar on both of these, and it's the same applicant group doing the proposed work. So we can kind of condense and make this work a little bit faster, hopefully. That being said, they are requesting preliminary and final for proposed renovations to the existing Arby's restaurant at 1590 Old Trolley, as well as the one on North Main Street. The first one is the Old Trolley one. The renovations are for a complete facade renovation and sign upgrade. The front greenhouse addition on the Arby's will be squared off, and some new landscaping to complement the new design will be included. Exterior brick is to be painted with a functional gray, dark brown, and pure white, and new storefront windows and new EIFS detail. That EIFS detail does not exceed the 25% limit and does not need an exception. They are proposing to remove the existing non-conforming sign and replace it with a new fully conforming sign. So existing situation at Old Trolley, and then this would be the proposed. And then to address, sorry, it's gonna take me a second to scroll through. The wall signage, there's no major issue. It is the ground sign that is being changed out. And they're going from the old tall Arby's sign down to the 6 foot tall, 36 square foot monument sign. And I'll just read through the comments on, or do you want me to wait? Do we want to address one at a time, or what do you want? How do you want? One at a time? All right, we'll do. And the applicant is here, so I'll turn it over to you. Where do you want me to start with these site plan?
Hi, I'm Daryl Snow. I'm representing ArcVision. We are the presenting architect for Arby's client. And they are in the process of doing a remodel refresh. As you've noticed, many fast food chains over the past 5 years or even 10 years have been modernizing their look, kind of cleaning things up. And Arby's has been more streamlined look away from the old tall cowboy hat and the old Western look that they've had for many, many years. And that's morphed over into now a much more modern look and keeping with the times. These two buildings are in much need of a refresh, even from some of those previous remodels. This first project here has a few things different from the other ones. So if we can discuss them separately, it'll help me on note keeping and any comments or suggestions that are made. The main thing to note, if you'll see on the front of the building, that would be Plan West, facing Old Trolley. That gray area there on the front of the building. And then if you could scroll down 2 slides, please. That triangular diamond shape and that whole solarium kind of look on the front of the building, all of that will be removed. So they're going to basically flatten the front of the building off with where you see the Arby's letter sign there, to give it a more consistent look with the rest of the brand. That Arby's, the letter signs will come off, and they'll be replacing that. We show in the a couple slides down, I believe it is, past the photos are the actual proposed renderings. Yes. So that comes back with the new Arby's logo sign. That will be one facade across. It has just a slight bump out there in the middle where the old diamond shaped, solarium dining area was. The new material there will be the horizontal siding. And then where we are removing and coming in with the new walls in order to replicate the rest of the brick that is already on the building. The owner is wanting to go in and use an eaves material that has a brick pattern in it. So once we paint the rest of the building, it will be a consistent look. It's just, it's a more cost-effective way to achieve the brick pattern and design without having to come in and actually install brick and then paint it. So that is what's being requested. And then they're going in with their new color scheme with the brown and the white and the gray. This also incorporates the use of the more, you see it on a lot of brands that use the more box flat awnings to come out like over the drive-through window and then around the front. The brand look has a linear look. If you'll scroll down one slide, please. Down along the side, taking the red accent band around the building and painting that into the brick on this particular project. And then that is replicated by the new box canopy, if you will, around on the front. The storefront frames will be refreshed with the new color palette as well. And that addresses the building itself. There are a few other improvements that will change on this site. They're different from the other one, but I don't know if you have any questions on the building part.
Go over the site real quick,
Okay.
and then we'll get into.
Okay. All right, back again to the site. What we're doing here with the site is they're going to come through, refresh the parking lot with a seal coat and restripe the parking lot. The spaces will go back in the same configuration that they have. Currently, where the accessible parking area is there, there's a little bit of a pitch to it. So they will be removing that asphalt, putting in a level concrete pad for those accessible parking spaces, and then sloping the sidewalk down to a zero entry onto the sidewalk that will take you into the building. So that's a much needed improvement there for the accessible parking. That's against the building. The one parking space that is against the property line is compliant and should not have any issue with that. Then we'll be restriping the walk path that goes across from that third space back to the building. Then in addition to those modifications with the accessible parking, we'll also have a refresh of the landscape. If you go now one more slide now back to the front photo, where we're taking out those elements along the front, the solarium type look. They'll go through, repair any damaged landscaping. The crepe myrtle there is on either side of the building actually are proposed to remain in place and to refresh any of the rest of the landscaping there as the building front facade shrinks back a little bit. So that will get a whole refresh of similar materials as what they have now. And then around the rest of the site, the standard refresh of any older, not performing well plants and shrubs that would come out, new mulch and so forth. So a nice new fresh look.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that. So one of our tasks is, as a board, is we have to say or have the standard of what did you do to make this look like it belongs in Somerville?
Mhm.
You know, through colors, through massing, through materials, that sort of thing. And I suspect this is probably kind of the prototype changes that you're making across the region. Fair enough?
That, yes,
far as
they
the color
are
palette and all that
similar
goes.
to a brand, a brand image, yes.
Sure. Okay, for me, I think this building is a step back from what's there. I think what's there looks better. I've never liked the diamond thing on the front with that big glass atrium thing. This massing may be a little bit better on the front, but what I think, you know, the past couple of 3 years, we've allowed painted brick. But I think we have a limit of the amount of painted brick. And I really cringe when I see that brick is painted. I think this is the existing building is a good brick color and kind of representative of Somerville. I don't think painting it on this parcel makes the town better. I think it kind of steps it back. I think the red is a little bit too much red on both the window frames, perhaps all the red that's on there. So I don't think I'm supportive of this. I didn't see any issues with any of the site plan. That all seems very reasonable. But the building, I have a hard time supporting it. So and that would apply to both buildings, but curious to see how the other board members feel.
I agree on this building, not particularly on the other building. I think you ought to look at the other building first. But I agree 100% with your comments on this building.
The other building has a different material that is not brick. So
Do you feel there are opportunities to make this somewhat customized?
I do, in that, you know, the brand, they are, like I said in the opening comments, the brand is trying to move to a more modern look, like many other fast food type brands. However, I think that there may be opportunities to work with the existing brick to get rid of the little diamond shapes around the building that are there now. That's just a very outdated look, and especially getting rid of that very big diamond that's in the front of the building. There might be some ways to go back and work through how to do that and bring some of the more keep the linear awning feel to it. That could be done possibly in a different color, but we're going to have to work with the brand on that. They do have certain things that they're wanting to keep as their brand standard, and hopefully we can take those things and marry them into your comments.
Yeah, colors are sensitive for us too, so it'd have to be, I would think, there's a lot of modern colors that aren't red, aren't gray, aren't what's presented.
Okay.
And so look
Okay.
forward to seeing what you come up with.
When you're talking about. I think what bothers me about it, I think they're for frames. It's true. What's bothering me about the red is the window frames that are red, the door that's red. The highlight at the top, that isn't bothering me, but it's, if they could leave the existing brick and put something more natural on that brick, then I don't think the red would be as objectionable. And it is a brand for them to have the red. They need some red someplace. Mhm.
I also think if the intent is to mimic brick with the ephes,
Right.
that it needs to come very close to the appearance. So perhaps next time you can bring a sample.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm always hesitant when someone says, oh, it's gonna look just like brick, or it's gonna look just like,
It didn't go.
you know, whether it's paving or whatever. See a lot of sign failures that.
I don't think there's that much ephes on this building, Trolley Road. It's mainly on Main Street. Main Street's got most of the ephes.
Well, he said this was though.
Some,
All of this.
well, from the pictures existing, it's not. It's mostly brick, the existing pictures.
Yes, Tim, do you mind rolling back to those existing
Main
photos? I think
Street,
they're up just a little bit. Yes. If you could kind of scroll through those just a little bit. Yeah, you'll see currently now the eaves as it is presently is just around the top above that brick soldier. And around on the front, you can see through the solarium there on that right corner photo. The brick does wrap around the corners onto the front of the building. We'll lose the full tower there in the front with all the glazing. But that will come off. I believe in the back to the sketches, I hate to keep jumping back and forth, but we're trying to do, I wish I could do a side-by-side comparison. Is that where we have the east now above the storefronts on the right and the left will basically go to the horizontal siding there. And then in the center section, that will be all new, that'll be all new wall construction. And then that would use the brick replication in the east, in the east finish.
Is there substantial savings between the brick replication and veneer?
There is actually, I don't know what the dollar amount is. I just know that this is something that our client is trying to do on a regular basis as much as is possible. They've used it on some of their other brands. The company that owns Arby's has used it on some of their other brand remodels as well. And it's something that has worked for them. They do scale out. We can present a sample for you. But the indentations with the eaves do scale out to a standard brick pattern.
I think we're anti-painting the brick. We're not pro paint the brick. So on this particular building on Trolley, you could easily replicate the existing brick with a brick where your Arby's feature is.
Okay.
And then you go with your wood where you had, your plan on them.
Okay.
Have you considered, you called this red band across the front, you actually called it a canopy, but it's really not a canopy. It's just
It's an awning.
it's a band.
Yeah, it's an awning that sticks out from the building.
But
just a
because
little
the
bit.
front door is there, have you considered making it a real canopy and projecting it out?
Oh, as far as how far it extends off of the building, that could be considered.
Okay.
Right now, you can see in any of the side views, you can see it goes out at the top almost a foot and underneath about 6 to 8 inches on the bottom side of it on the profile. That is something that we could go back to them and say, hey, could we consider this similar to what we have over the drive-through? A little bit more depth and see what kind of feedback that gets.
And I think kind of the middle ground between where I am on the red striping and where Candy is on the red striping is maybe it's only where there's really canopies, but on the building wall, there's not a red stripe that goes around it. That
Okay.
doesn't add to the appeal for me.
So you would be addressing the red at the back of the building and around the rest. Just leave the canopies to the front and
Correct.
not do the rest. Okay,
Correct. But obviously we'd have to see what's come back with. And
sure.
any other comments on this one?
Last issue on this remodel is merely just refresh things. So they do intend to change their menu board out from the current menu board to a new one. And those are more just facelift kind of things. The little cover for the menu ordering window, where the menu boards are, that cover would be replaced. And this is the signage package that has come from our signage vendor. These would be done as a separate, these are the awning pieces. You can keep scrolling down just a little bit. A little bit further. Keep going. These just address the building. And then this is the sign for the front that would go on the front facade. And then these are the menu speaker, and I'm waiting till we get to it. These are still on the building. That's the canopy. Here we go. So this is the little roof that goes over the order speaker. The rain cover there. And then I believe the next slide, one more. This is the post for it. Sign vendors give us great drawings. And then we get to the actual signage out to the front. replacing the taller non-conforming screen, sign. And then the other thing that's in this package, just to summarize it, make it really quick, those items are more just refreshing what's there. Take, as Tim said in the opening comments there, making the front sign compliant, and then the menu board, just a new menu board, and then a new rain cover that kind of melds with the rest of the building.
My initial reaction on that as well, and I appreciate that, is let's avoid red posts.
Okay.
You know, stuff wrong with black, bronze. And the sign base for this, typically we say have it match the building. And I know sounds like there's some wood on the building, but I would typically, that would be brick is what we normally request that matches the building. So we can kind of revisit that when you come back.
Right.
But-
These drawings here are presented by the sign vendor, so they don't necessarily reflect exactly what would be done. That's all they're addressing in their presentation with the actual sign itself. But to your point, yes, we'll make some notes for that.
Okay, any other comments from the board? They're asking for preliminary and final approval. Sounds like they all thought they need to work on what to do. So does anyone like to make a motion?
I think we not grant preliminary approval,
Motion for denial.
a motion for denial.
No, we're just this one,
Second.
just this project. I mean, both preliminary and final? What,
we should get final, but I don't know why we can't do preliminary approval to address.
Because they haven't got anything we like.
yeah, they have a long way to go. So you've made a motion for
Denial.
denial. Is there a second?
That's second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of supporting denial, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yes.
All right, thank you so much.
Okay.
Don't go anywhere. Next is 329 North Main Street.
This project is a little closer to home in the downtown area, I believe. It is less of a refresh, and hopefully more of an improvement. I'll let you go to any kind of opening comments you would.
The proposed renovations are a complete facade renovation, sign upgrade. I must have copied from the last one. Some new landscaping to complement the new design will be included. Obviously, same colors. New storefront windows and new EFS detail. To note, the proposed EFS detail exceeds the permitted 25% of the facade, and this will require an exception to the design guidelines from the DRB. The existing building currently exceeds the 25% limit. They are proposing the removal of the existing non-conforming sign with replacement with a new fully conforming sign as well here. So this is the site. I will turn it back over to the architect.
Okay, again, we'll start with the site. Again, with the site is mainly restriping and refreshing the landscaping to, you don't spend the money to improve a building without, trimming everything else around it. So bringing those items, into a more modern, new and fresh look. So that's pretty much all with the site work itself. We do have one area at the drive-through window that the owner is wanting to try to, if we can, expand the drive-through frontage on the building 2 feet by 2 feet, so that they can incorporate a little bit more equipment into the drive-through on the interior. That is a proposed request, and it's noted there at the very top, plan north. You can see keynotes 10, 20, 21 deal with that area up there. what they're wanting to do on the floor plan. I don't know if that made it into this submittal, but in the equipment layout for the building, they just need a little bit more equipment to serve the drive-through window itself. And currently, right now, and you could probably picture most drive-throughs. You have the window here, and then you have equipment on both sides. Right now, there's just no wall space over here because the building was built too small for the current use. So they're proposing to expand that corner out to 2 feet and be able to get a couple more pieces of equipment in that one corner. So that's the proposal that you see in that block right there, that slide there. It's keynote number 9. So that would be the amount of space. It's roughly 2 feet by 2 feet. Then as far as the building itself on the exterior, this is a little bit simpler refresh. If we can just slowly go through these just to give you some idea of what the current exterior looks like, and then we'll spend, I guess, more of our time with the renderings for the proposed elevations. The main thing to note on this site that's different than the other ones is that A, it is already a painted building, and B, when it was constructed, it was done so using the fluted veneer product there, CMU veneer product. So what we're wanting to try to do with that is to try to bring it a little bit fresher look without having to completely demolish the current facade, because that does get into quite a bit of cost. So then as we go through these, you'll see the eaves there around the side and the front. As noted in the comments, that it does currently exceed the 25%. So what we're trying to do is go through, get rid of the little squares, and similar to the other building that we just looked at, incorporate the use of the horizontal siding. Yes, next slide there. These are just views around the site, and there, that view right there where it has keynote number 4 on the plan north and in that dark black area, it just allows them to get that extra equipment in that they need for that drive-through window to function a little bit better for them. And you can go to the next. This one, we're keeping that existing diamond shape on the front just because at this particular site, you know, they have to evaluate every site by the amount of money it brings in, how much they can spend on it, and so forth. This is not one that at this time that they're proposing to get rid of that storefront. However, they're trying to make it the only thing with this building and get rid of the little squares around in the eaves and so forth. On this particular one here is the use of the other 2 materials there. And you can see on the material schedule, see, I'm trying to find it on there, the C. I see that. Okay. Yes, so that is the horizontal scored drive-it material to replicate a siding material. Again, incorporating the use of the bracketed with the clevis rods on the drive-through canopy and then around the front, similar to what was there before. In this case, what we're proposing is to only bring the new color scheme, if you will, around the front of the building as far as you see the horizontal application there in the center, the dark brown section. From there back, we don't want to try to do the band. They've tried to do this on other locations where they have the fluted material there on the finish and trying to get that band around. So to our point earlier, that's something we won't have to worry about here because it is very difficult to do and it's not very cost effective either. So they are opting to just try to refinish the current material without having to take any of it off. I'll just let you process these without talking too much. And I believe that's it on this one. I don't recall there being a signage package. You can go down a couple more if you would, please. Past the site.
Yeah, this is
That's it.
the end of the section. I did receive via email, not enough time to add it. So an inquiry concerning the signage at this location.
Okay.
And it was the same discussion, similar thing, taking the old 18-foot tall Arby's hat down to the what's permitted, which would be 6 feet and 36 square feet. I believe this building's set back far enough. I'd have to scale it off. I believe it's more than 20 feet setback because this is zoned DMX, which is downtown mixed use. And if the building's front door is within 20 feet of the front, it technically can't have a sign. So if a ground sign, so if that is the case and they want to keep a sign out front, they can't remove it because they would not be able to replace it.
Okay.
Just that side note, if it's less than 20 feet from the front.
My understanding is that we are back far enough on the setbacks.
I think you are. Without scaling it off and figuring that out, I can't say for certain.
Yeah, it's bigger than a drive aisle. So. And the plans say, removing, I know, that's kind of what you said, but those plans do say that y'all are lowering the sign.
That's correct. It's taking the tall sign and going to a lower monument sign. Yes.
Okay. But that sign's not in the package?
The signage package itself is not in here.
Gotcha.
We've included the depictions of that on our elevation drawings. And that was earlier in this one group here showed the monument sign again.
Can you see that monument sign? The new one?
This is the previous location. It's the same sign, but the 929 drawings reference the same
Understood.
monument
Okay.
sign package.
All right.
You'd have to go back with the similar base to the material of the building
Okay.
once again.
Okay.
Are there any opportunities to help screen the back of the building a little bit? Over the years, I've always noticed that looks pretty junky.
Well, you need to screen the coolers, the walk-ins anyway.
Right.
They definitely need to be screened, and since they put all their junk outside that back door, and make it look like crap all the time,
mhm.
just give them an enclosed area in the back with make it whatever you're screening the coolers with,
Mhm.
make a junk area for the people that run that one.
And can you go to those pictures of that real quick? You mind?
That's it there.
The back, yeah.
See how messy.
That's always looked bad.
Okay. So your recommendation then is to come off of the screen around the cooler to provide a screen around the receiving area. Okay.
Good suggestion.
I do know from the site plan that is a parking area immediately behind that, so we would not necessarily be impeding on the drive through traffic lane. So
Sidewalk.
yeah, you just got sidewalk and a parking area.
Any comments on the building changes?
I'm okay with them on this one. Other than the screening of that back area.
I think the amount of EFS exceeds what is allowed. So,
Sees it now, but
right, so I think that was an issue, an original issue that we wanted to solve. And it seems that this proposal just adds to it. So you're going the wrong way.
Okay.
And I think, the use of real materials, if you're trying to create this hardy board look,
Sure.
why not use hardy board?
Okay.
Or wood?
I second that. I'd rather see. I'd rather see them do nothing than this, just because I'd rather wait until you can replace that whole veneer with real brick.
Okay.
You know, that would be my preference. That's. Just one person's opinion, but I'd rather. I don't know, I'm struggling with that. But another way to say it is, I would encourage you to see if there's opportunities to introduce brick into at least the very front, or you're having to change that front facade. Is there an opportunity for brick?
And using these photos as a reference, because this shows both of the sides, the front's pretty simple. It's just the kind of beige khaki eaves all the way to the slab. On these two elevations, you can see the use of the fluted masonry underneath the storefronts. So that would be something where you would be recommending to underneath the storefronts, bring the brick element around the front.
You could use a thin brick,
Yes,
which is more expensive than regular brick, but
yeah, anymore it is, yes,
structurally it's easier to work with.
absolutely. I'm trying to get a clear recommendation from the
There's a,
board.
do we have one that shows the front a little bit more instead of kind of the,
That's the existing front.
right?
Yeah.
So, and now go to the proposed. The next, while I was looking for that, next time when you come back,
Mhm.
if you could put them side
Put
by
them-
side,
Existing and new,
be
okay.
more helpful. Yeah, if there's an opportunity to like what is 6A2? Let's drive it. If there's opportunities to make see the parapet, not parapet, what's this?
Below the storefront.
Below the storefront, right? Water table. Well, yeah,
Wainscot, all kinds of fun words.
sure. But if there's an opportunity to bring that brick in logical places, right? It's gotta make sense. I think it would look better, especially if I think the thin brick works, we've used that elsewhere. So that would be my encouragement.
Now, this building being primarily a painted building, would you recommend actual finished brick, or would it be an opportunity to use a brick pattern with a painted finish? The actual brick.
Actual thin brick.
And I forget how far off of the main downtown district that is.
It's
not
a
too
couple
far.
blocks this way. I think this is a very, very important building, so I would prefer you take this even further than you have. I know there's a financial impact. But I think this is a very important building to Main Street.
Well, and coffee roasters have got brick, I think. And then, the drugstore.
Right.
It's
Now,
got brick.
is the building, it's included in one of the photos to the side, because this was pointed out by our client. Next one up, I believe, is that building right there. They were trying to juxtapose that building from the subway use to our building as far as how modern or how downtown a building needs to look. And their understanding is that this is actually a fairly recent remodel. of
They
that
didn't
building.
get permission to do that work.
Okay.
We didn't
Duly noted.
in other words.
I guess that takes care of that concern. Big scribble mark on my face.
Yeah, I think if they were to tear down the RVs now.
Yeah.
And rebuild it wouldn't look like. I don't think it would look like what you presented. Yeah, it wouldn't look like what is there now.
Okay.
It would be more indicative of kind of the downtown, which is primarily brick, metal roofs. That sort of thing. I think the last tear down that I can think of along this area was the Bojangles. When you get closer to the interstate on the right, you can see that, and that is primarily brick, if not all brick. And then McDonald's actually, many years ago was a tear down, I think, and that's all brick. So I would encourage you. You'd get more support from me if you had more brick in this and not painted.
Okay.
Any other comments? They too are asking for preliminary and final approval on this one. I'd like to see what they come back with. But we would like to make a motion.
I'll make the same motion. It's denied.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor of a denial, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
All right.
thank you so much.
Thank you for the
Appreciate it.
suggestion. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, the next applicant is the North Main Street Walmart.
Nope, that would be the 601 North Main Street Checkers.
All right, checked off the wrong thing.
She got excited.
Sorry about that.
So this is a request for preliminary and final approval for the addition of a freestanding freezer to the property. Property zoned UCMX, urban corridor mixed use. It is currently a Checkers restaurant. This has been to the board 3 times previously. The last time it was here, it was approved in April of 2022. So last year, with conditions, they had the proposed freezer in a completely different location. It was located in the front parking lot area here. And the conditions included extensive landscaping on 3 sides, screening for the walls, as well as rooftop screening that would have covered the mechanical materials on the top. They did obtain the permit or applied for the permit. It was approved. They never started construction. I believe that the costs of the conditions kind of kicked it out of possibility. I was recently contacted by a representative again concerning the addition of the freezer. And I referred them again to look at the side where this is being proposed in this particular situation. Being UCMX, they are permitted to go down to a 0 lot line setback. So they took a closer look at this property line over here, which is behind landscaping up front, as well as their drive-through canopy to fit the proposed freezer in on this side, north side of the property. I will allow Mr. Stillings, Corey, yes, to present the rest of the details to you guys concerning the proposal.
Corey Selling, Plywood Consultants. Tim summarized it up pretty well. We're just relocating it to the side, adding additional landscaping to screen it from Main Street. The drive-through itself and the building hide it from 78. And then we're adding a little bit of sidewalk from the door, which faces the rear of the property, away from Main Street, down to the drive-through area. That's essentially it. There's no architectural. There's an example. The 2 pictures up top show what the freezer would be.
Are you moving the existing freezer or you're bringing a new freezer?
It's a new freezer.
Okay.
There is currently no freezer on site. They did not construct, just to clarify that. They did apply for the permits, but they did not actually build it.
Are there any fire code issues being so close to the property line? If it was a building, there would be.
Not that I'm aware of.
Uh,
Not that I'm aware of now.
Rebecca? You'd have to be fire rated. So that's 2-hour. 2-hour rating. But you're gonna need some architectural on how you're gonna screen this thing. Cause it ain't gonna look like that, a cooler.
Do you have a site plan that shows the proximity of the neighbor? I mean, that, like where the building is, or an aerial? Yeah. Canopy, maybe even closer. The canopy may be even closer.
It's parking over there on that adjacent site at 605. The building probably 15 feet away from the edge, at least 15 feet. Unfortunately, during the renovations, I just got an email concerning that. The office that was located on the side of that, which would have been the closest thing to this property line. During the renovations, as they were trying to pull that down, that particular part of the building fell apart. So you guys might be seeing that shortly to address that change to the exterior. But that would have been the closest thing to that. The rest of it, they were proposing a 6-foot fence on this property line anyways, at 605, as well as landscaping on that side. I genuinely don't see any way that there's going to be much of this visible except for on site. That's my personal opinion.
Go between those trees.
Still got the fire rating issues,
Yeah.
which are gonna require probably an architect doing some drawings.
I think what we approved last year looked much better than what this is being proposed.
Yeah, I don't like this, I don't like the precedent that this set. Cause everyone start putting their cooler on the property line, or the trees or whatever. At least not architecturally. I wouldn't want it as a neighbor.
I like it better there than in the parking lot.
Yeah.
I'd say the location previously approved in the middle of the island. I mean, it's way more visible from 78 Main Street. You see that before you see the actual checkers. So this kind of hides it a lot better and gets it away from public view and closer to where the backup house work will be done.
Minimally, I think they could, yeah, that's valid. Minimally, I think they could add columns or something, or metal panels or something that screens it better, so it looks more intentional than just a freezer.
How about right behind the building? Immediately behind the building.
Won't fit.
Yeah, well,
Anyone else would like to speak?
not there. We're not seeing a picture of immediately behind the building, but you can see that drawing right there. I can't read that, what it says. Stamped concrete parking. I mean, it would fit there. Right behind the building.
I'm Philip Riddle. I'm from Greer, but I'm the director of this whole freezer program for Beambo Bakeries nationwide. So I came down to Somerville when met Tim and looked at where this was approved last time. And when I looked at that, I thought, if that goes in there, the city's not going to be happy. Okay, so I'm the one that went out and tape measured everything on this left side from Main Street. There's absolutely not enough space right behind the building, because the drive-through comes through real close there. There's plenty of screening existing, and then we're going to put screening in front of that. There's 2 large pine trees where this will go right between the 2 pine trees. The other thing about this side is that the electrical stub is on that side of the drive-through. So the electrical, we've already talked with Dominion, the electrical would come straight in. You wouldn't have to disturb the parking lot. It would not be visible from Main or on the side street. Well, I don't know all the names of the street down here, but the main thoroughfare there would not be visible from any traffic passing the sign. So in my opinion, and I'd sat in y'all's seat in Greenville County for some years. So in my experienced opinion, there's no better place to put this on this site than here. It'll open, we turn the freezer so it'll open on the back side away from North Main. And then the other thing that brings to y'all's attention is putting this freezer there. The bread deliveries are then once about every 14 days and done in the night rather than a bread truck coming during the day at this heavy traffic intersection. So it's another big consideration, putting the freezer there, is that elimination of that delivery truck during business hours. So, so my opinion and recommendation to y'all respectfully is that for this site, it's absolutely an ideal place.
Thank you for
And
that.
there's absolutely no space behind the building.
Thank you for that.
Yep.
Is there an opportunity to paint it a darker color or something so it's not that silver and?
Yeah, for example, it's really brown. Wendy's likes to call it bronze, okay? But for them, we have them bronze, to kind of a dark brown. So we can put it any color, or even like a forest green could be.
How you gonna fire rate the wall?
Excuse me?
Fire rate the wall.
Yeah, I'll have to talk with our engineers about that.
Yeah.
And find out about that. But we do such things because like in Florida, you have to have special permits, and Maryland, you have to have special permits for various subjects, you know.
But there are a lot of ways to do it, but
Yeah,
somebody just has to address it and figure it out.
yeah. So I'll have to talk to our engineering folks about that, but it's not, no real issue.
I think if they painted it a Charleston green or forest green or whatever, and it's hidden, that's described, and that's shown on the aerial, I'm okay with it.
I would be too. As long as, yeah, not an obvious color.
And we work with Sherwin-Williams because it's outdoor applications. We work with Sherwin-Williams on, I don't want to say a special paint, but we have a deal with Sherwin-Williams about the paint used on these nationwide.
So we could, if people are in agreement, have a motion and they submit the paint sample to staff, we submit that to a committee of us or whatever, and then get on down the road.
The paint color, yeah, and it's up to the building department to make a rule on a fire rating. That's their call, not ours.
Okay, yeah, we can get that technical data. And the color of the brown or the gray?
Submit both.
Huh?
Submit both.
Yeah, black.
But either.
You have a comment?
Yeah, I'd like to see some more detail on the screening too, not just the color of the freezer itself.
Say again?
Some more detail on the screening
From the north.
from the Main Street side, yes.
Yeah, I think there's some, Tim, I think there's some pictures of those Japanese, yeah, I guess how you pronounce it, you.
That'd be good.
Yeah, one more. I think one more down shows. Yeah, this would be across the front, and there's already some other, we'll call them bushes there, and that large pine tree between this freezer and North Main.
They don't even have to add anything. It's a natural screen.
Right, so they're asking for preliminary and final approval. Would someone like to make a motion?
Make a motion, we approve.
Go into committee with colors.
Committee with the colors, that's based on comments, yeah.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in any further discussion? All right, call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? You're opposed? Okay. There you go. You understand?
Thank
All right, good deal. Now, the Walmart. Put you on the spot.
So this is an application for preliminary and final approval for the painting of the exterior of the building of the Walmart located at 1317 North Main Street, property zone GB general business. Based upon preliminary staff review, these are the comments. The proposed repainting and signage package will potentially improve the appearance of the existing store at this location. There will be some minor site changes related to the online shopping pickup. Pretty straightforward. If you'd like me to zoom in, just let me know. I can try to get a little bit closer to these. They're hard to see in detail.
Thank you. My name is Amy Miles. I'm with PB2 Architecture and Engineering. As you can see, the paint changes here are a more modern look for Walmart. This is a look that we've done in various stores throughout the area. The biggest changes, I think, will be the reduction in the total sign area. We're going from about 538 total square feet of building signage down to about 414 square feet, with the most obvious change being the transition from the longer Walmart letter sign to this more compact, smaller Walmart word with the main brand logo on there. As Tim mentioned, there's also going to be some minor site modifications. The current online grocery parking is in the front of the store, and that will be changed over to what looks like the east side. That's a simple restriping of the existing parking area. They won't be doing anything major in the way of construction there. That will help the increased online grocery pickup traffic stay out of the pedestrian ways in front of the store. So the cars will go around the building, the parking lot, and go straight to those parking spaces on the side rather than having to drive through the entire parking lot to get to the spaces in the front. That's pretty much it. It's not a big change.
Thank you.
And you're painting?
Correct. Yes. There's
Same color?
no, I believe that these are
The new
updated
color.
colors.
Is it the blue?
Correct. Yes.
Do you have any existing photos?
What does it look like now?
It's currently a brown.
Yeah, it's a brown tan. The older Walmart standard colors from goodness, the early 2000s. So this is the more modern look for most retailers now. You're seeing grays and light grays and blues all around.
How
everywhere now.
about the metal roof colors on the canopy?
Those
they gonna
won't change.
They're gonna stay the same as the rest of the shopping center,
That's correct.
or is it, which is what they are now, so they're not changing.
Right. Those are shown on plan right there. Those actually the canopies will be painted to the darker color. But it is all intended to correspond with the existing center.
No existing pictures?
Sadly, no, I apologize.
Okay.
I didn't put this project together, but no, there are none. Are you talking about the metal canopies on each side of the entrances? Oh, okay. Yes, I do. It does appear that those are going to be painted the darker gray, or even, no, it's the black gray is what it's called.
It would be nice to know.
Yeah, but everything you see has a paint call out. So yes, the whole front facade, all facades will be painted with the majority of the color differentiation being on the front facade. So the sides and the rear will be mostly one standard light gray color, but as you can see, like there's the blue accent, there's the dark gray. The dark gray, where the car corrals or the car storage used to be, the darker gray on those canopies, and then the blue above each entrance. We kept those cow walls there instead of taking them out and painting that whole area blue. So it breaks up that blue a little bit. No, ma'am, we do not. It might be, it certainly won't be that size. There may be the longer Walmart and then the smaller, called the Spark on, at the end of that. Let me look, 1 second, I can check that. Yes, it does have a smaller Spark on there. So it's the larger Walmart lettering and then a smaller Spark. So this flips that to the larger Spark and the smaller Walmart letters.
I think it needs to be painted. It's been a long time since it was painted. It's probably leaking. So let's paint it.
Got it. The renderings, unfortunately, most of the stores in my area have transitioned to this color palette, and it's a better look. It's just a nicer finish across the board. That's my preference. Not that that really matters.
I think in this case, it's not gonna overly enhance or overly detract from what's there. It's not gonna help or hurt from drive down Main Street.
These people, right?
So, I mean, obviously, I'd rather see different building, but no, I think it is what it is. Okay, they're asking for preliminary and final approval. Would someone like to make a motion?
Make a motion for approval.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
Who provided the motion? I missed that.
Next is
Art.
Art, and I seconded.
oh, sorry,
Thank you.
202 West Fifth North Street. Greenhouse.
Yes. So this is the location. This is a request for preliminary and final approval for the addition of a backyard greenhouse. Property is zoned NMX, which is neighborhood mixed use, located at 702 West Fifth North Street. Current land use is a business and residence. Mr. Alford owns the property, lives at the property, and operates his business out of the property. Unfortunately, because it's commercial and a commercial use, he does need to come in for permission to construct a backyard greenhouse. It's an accessory structure in the rear yard, based on what he has provided here. It's going to be located here, so be behind the main house and well behind the landscape screen. This is his proposed design, and
He's within all the setbacks he needs to do and.
yeah, no setback issues. He's got almost a full acre there.
Are there any objections to this project? No. Is there a motion for approval?
That person was listed as a neighbor. He died 15 years ago, so.
I'll make a motion for approval.
I'll second.
Yes. All right, any further discussion?
No.
All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Next is Luden Drive.
All right, so next item on the agenda is Luton Drive, the applicant is requesting conceptual review of a proposed 18-unit apartment development in 3 buildings on 0.95 acres. Property is zoned NB Neighborhood Business. This property is located on the west side of Luton Drive, just north of the Sawmill Branch Crossing. It's currently vacant. So, sorry, multifamily development is permitted in NB. A tree removal permit and tree protection board approval are required. 30-foot buffers are required on the north, south, and west property lines. The proposed plan shows 20 feet on the west and south and 14 feet on the north. Buffers are supposed to be free and clear of any construction, including sidewalks. The entrance walk on the south for the building 3 encroaches into the 20-foot buffer. These reductions are within the board's authority to provide exceptions to that requirement. NB allows for a 0 front setback. There is a 12-foot easement at the front property line. The buildings could be shifted forward to be closer to the easement and allow the west buffer to be closer to the required 30 feet. The plan shows 36 parking spaces, putting it right at 2 per dwelling unit. This exceeds the minimum requirement of 1.1 parking space per dwelling unit. The last parking space in the northern row will be difficult to pull into and out of. Staff recommends removing that space and using it for a landscape island. The proposed dumpster enclosure encroaches into the required buffer, and the DRB can provide an exception to that requirement. NB has a 65% maximum lot coverage. The plans show that the lot coverage limit is not being exceeded. However, the plans do not show the required 5% open space and 5% park space required to be provided, as noted in the TRC comments dated May 24th, 2022. Additionally, the plans are not taking into account the required stormwater requirements based on greater than ½ acre of disturbance. Also noted in the TRC comments from last year. Compensatory storage will also be required for the fill that is proposed in the floodway as shown in the Dorchester County map. A landscape plan has not been submitted as part of this review. Architecture includes a mix of materials, including stucco, Nichiha panels, and shiplap siding with wood accent. Mechanicals are located on the roof and screened from view. Just to address the one comment concerning the compensatory storage. With the adoption of the UDO and subsequent revisions, the town adopted a compensatory storage requirement for any fill within the floodway. As we can see here from the Dorchester County map, that part of this particular lot is within the existing floodway, and they're proposing to fill to accommodate the corner of this building. Any fill that is brought in needs to be that you need to compensate for the loss of that floodplain area. That has not been taken into account in this particular plan. I did receive a slightly revised plan, which this is actually, I believe. No. Okay. Yeah, I did not get that in to make a revised plan. It did address some of the lot coverage issue. Not lot coverage, the disturbance issue for the site, which would potentially mitigate the stormwater, the full MS4 review. That being said, I think there's still some things that need to be addressed site-wise, and it's going to be razor thin margin on that aspect. So I chose to leave it on the agenda for discussion concerning some of the details there, as well as the architecture, the proposed architecture for the buildings, which I figured that the board would want to take a look at. But I know for a fact that there's going to be some discussion that is going to need to be done to address some of the engineering issues.
Floor is yours.
Floor's mine. My name's Kevin Wally. I'm with Architecture Plus, the architect on the project. And Trey Linton with Forsberg Engineering is here attending with Vitaly Mandrescu, one of the owners. Vitaly and his partner have had the property for quite some time, and Tim McCall and the team at the city were very kind enough to sit down with us after the preliminary TRC. And Trey and I had worked on some different alternative parking schemes and building layouts. Originally, not to go back too far, but originally there was there was a thought that maybe 4 buildings could be set on the site. We're zoned NB, which limits us to 3 stories. We talked a little bit with Tim about maybe limiting one of the buildings and trying to go 4 stories and rezone. And I think we ultimately decided that the solution that you see before you with the parking in that orientation provided the best option for us. There were some pictures submitted, Tim, in the original submittal that showed the adjacent properties, but many of you might be familiar with the general location and the fact that there's 2 apartment complexes that have about 8 units each. They are brick faced, they're 2 stories. The parking does front the street. We did talk a little bit with Tim about that opportunity for us, and with the new guidelines and with the Ludens Drive becoming a state DOT governed property, we couldn't really consider anything like that. So we were left to deal with this 0.98 acre site all by ourselves. After studying the marketplace, I think Trey and I decided with Vitaly that providing 2 parking spaces per proposed unit was the smartest thing to do. I think the fact that the sprinkler system is a requirement for a 3-story building led us to stay with the current zoning. Tim was very quick to tell us what the town of Somerville was really going to expect in terms of architecture development. I've been practicing here. I lived here for 10 years before I moved to North Charleston about 6-8 years ago. And boy, how we've grown here in Somerville. We've worked in Nexton, and we worked at the Knittery building over around Town Square off of Richardson. So I'm delighted to see you putting all this time into reviewing these projects. Trey and I came up with this. I think that the organization of the 3 buildings and the parking organization fits the site the best. We did have a 30-foot buffer. This is the Ludens Street, basically required here. North, south. This is one of the existing buildings that slightly encroaches into the current site. So this is one of the current buildings that approaches a bit. As we begin to develop park, we really felt like we can't do anything about that encroachment problem. So the goal was to focus here. If you want to scroll down, Tim, would you mind scrolling down to the aerial 3D imagery that starts to show the architectural development? There's a few 3D image. Go to the second one if you would, sir. Keep going. I think it shows it the best. One more shot. One more shot. There you go. The very top left image on your screen is the aerial showing this. And really what we thought is that The other buildings adjacent to us are 25 years plus old. Tim and his group suggested they didn't want to see coastal architecture. People do want to see things that are a little bit more contemporary now. The goal of our architectural design was to have a staircase system that is the central spline of each building. And then we more or less tried to tip our hat to a Charleston single gable element on each side. We used a variety of different materials to try to break up the massing. And overall, we thought it was very successful. We set the building from the 30 feet. We were just trying to honor that initial 30-foot setback. Quite a lot of existing trees. Did come back and address the basic coverages. And while Tim advises that they are razor thin, they certainly do meet the criteria. We've got 3 buildings. They're about 2,667 square foot of footprint. Each one has a 1,000 square foot apartment, 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, flanking each other. So there's 2 in each building at each first floor, and then 4 more above that. As I said, they're sprinkled. There's 2 sets of staircases, front and back. We looked at the amount of area that we're covering, and we were trying to stay below that half-acre designation, because it really didn't make sense to do a lot of grading around the buffer areas and destroy those trees. We did talk a little bit about some underground containment, and that can get very expensive, as you might know. So what we tried to do was to design it without the underground containment, try to stay within the half of an acre of disturbance. And I understand what the staff said about the 1 parking space. You have a full 24 feet, 25 feet to back up and angle yourself out. But we did provide a dumpster unit here. All the adjacent apartments that are around there utilize the standard residential bins, so that on trash day, you've got dozens of those bins sitting out there. So we were trying to eliminate that. And the other thing we tried to do with the design is to put the compressor units on the roof and screen them, so that we didn't have a lot of junky areas around it. Sometimes these apartments can get busy with all this type of stuff. So we think it's a very clean approach. I think our desire in coming in at a concept level was to gain the board's review and approval of the variance opportunities. Show you a glimpse of the design. If you want to go back, Tim, I can go back to the floor plans and just one more sheet there. It's a very well thought out building. A 2-bedroom, 2-bath unit, as I said, on the left and on the right, fire protection system in the middle, flanking staircases front and back. We are required to have 1 ADA unit, and the fact of the matter is we have provided that. All of these areas at grade. The land disturbance is very minuscule from the existing grades. We're slab on grade, we're above flood. We do have a little bit of a low area, as Tim said, but I think, Trey, I don't know if you want to address that, but it didn't seem like it was a really big deal.
I'm Trey Litton with Forsberg Engineering, the civil engineer on the project. As Kevin alluded to, we went through quite a few different iterations to come up with this site plan and this layout for the site. As far as grading is concerned, where the existing grade on the site is relatively flat. So we're not planning on mass grading the site. We're sticking to the existing grades with some slight adjustment here and there. The one area that Tim mentioned at the beginning, there will be a slight amount of fill there, which we will look at addressing in our future design. But other than that, we try to keep the grading simple as to not disturb a lot of area on the site.
The floor plans are shown. If you want to just scroll up again, they're very similar on the 3 floors. Tim, just take us through that real briefly. These units are 1,000 feet. We've got an outdoor patio or an outdoor balcony as the opportunity exists. There's natural lighting on both sides. Really nicely done in terms of the spaces. What we were trying to do architecturally is provide something for the clients that's going to be marketable, rentable. There's obviously a need for apartments. You want to continue to the elevations. What we tried to do there, and bear with us, we're architects, but we were told to be a little creative, so that's what we did. We've got a central spline that's tall, a little reminiscent in materials of the long pines that we have in Somerville. And then the gable element, which is reminiscent of the Charleston single that kind of pinwheels around the floor plan to provide a great deal of interest. That's really what we were trying to accomplish, is to break up the building, proposing stucco on the major gable elements, combination of either a hardy siding or maybe even a hardy oversized panel on some of the areas, and then some wood amber in natural tone where we can screen some of the staircase area and things like that. You just want to scroll up then. This area right here shows, this is one of the elevations that will be proud on the entrance. And then come down again, one more elevation scheme. Again, a variety of elevation facades on all 4 elevations. Keep going, sir. This particular elevation occurs our fire separation where it's required, going to be limiting the window fenestration. Those are all actually bed walls and bathrooms. So that's how we get away with maybe a little fewer windows. Keep going up, sir. What we're trying to do, these renderings and the colors are a little representative of some tones that we're studying. That's why we're at a concept level. As I say, our goal and objective here is to get approval on the basic parking orientation, basic footprints, hoping that we can stay within the ½ acre of disturbance or less. We provided a park area, and the client just told me that they do have plans to put some gazebos in there and some other benches and things. Yep. And also we want to, yeah, that's right here. Trey and I are really at the point where if we can proceed to a preliminary level, if that's a normal process, we can sit down with the landscape architecture team and put together a nice plan and make sure that we've got adequate screening here for residential. This is all adjacent to. For Tim's comment about moving the buildings forward, there is a easement. I don't think there's any sidewalk planned along Blue, right? So we could go a little closer. I leave it to this committee to render their thought as well as Tim and his staff has done. We have allowed for, that's an older plan that you have there in front of you. We have allowed the 5 foot. Closer, we could certainly get more landscaping around each building, which
Thank you for that. We'll just jump right into the discussion. My initial comments is overall, I think generally looks good. I think there's some site planning issues that have to be worked out with staff in terms of that compensatory storage and the drainage and all that. I'm sure you're fully aware of that. So it'll be curious to see how that really impacts the site plan. I echo the sentiment about when I first saw it, I thought that there was not enough room for landscaping around the foundation of the building, especially if it's got sidewalks around it, which I don't think that plan shows. Could be an older plan. Just consider that, like you suggested. Maybe a question for Tim, but it looks like the dumpster enclosures are within the setback area, or is that a buffer or a setback?
Yes, it's in a buffer. So that's why I suggested kind of shifting the whole thing forward. It would reduce the depth on the throat of this, the drive aisle. If you could bring it a couple feet forward, shift the whole site plan forward closer to Loudon Drive a little bit. That would reduce the amount of reduction to the buffer that the DRB would have to approve. Here on this side, you can also approve an encroachment into the required buffers. You know, I know on the revised plan that was sent over, some of the sidewalk was removed to address the lot coverage and disturbance levels. But if there's any encroachment within that buffer, and the board does have the authority to reduce those buffers if they feel that the intent of the ordinance is being met. So the one thing I would point out, I believe that the revised one was showing open space and park space within that southern buffer area. Unfortunately, at bare minimum, I don't believe that can be utilized. The buffer space can be utilized and contribute to the open and park space. I'm doing that right off the top of my head, but I'm fairly confident that's the case. So we would need to just have that shown somewhere else.
Sure.
Especially any amenities that they might need to meet the very low threshold we have for park space on the site. So that's really, like I said, there's some site planning things that need to still be worked out on site to be able to meet those minimum requirements.
It seems like a lot of stuff on the site, kind of all packed in. One other quick comment is if this parking lot is full, like the north-south parking lot is full, and someone drives in, they have to back out at an angle and maybe even have to back out onto the street. So it's very concerning to me that
One space.
no, if the bottom parking lot is full and you pull into the parking lot thinking there's a space and there's not, you have to back your vehicle out 70 feet backwards, which could be a problem. Okay. So I think could be a safety issue that you need to consider.
There's an improvement against the neighbors. Back out the street.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's what we're up against.
So.
Yeah, but you still can't.
Just a question on that. There's an ADA space closer to the buildings. The space at the back of the parking lot is striped as in not parked there. Would that be a no parking turnaround spot?
Like a hammerhead.
Yeah.
Well, they're both.
It probably would be, because the odds are you're not gonna have two.
Well, they're both shown as handicap
Well,
parkings,
I'm
right?
saying what we could do is one closer to the building, we could shift that aisle so that it's between two spots. And then on that back side, just have that last spot be no parking, say turnaround for that reason.
Potentially. Yeah, as long as they can pull into it and back out like you would a normal parking space.
Yeah.
I think what's gonna happen is you have a good chance of losing a couple of spaces. I think once you kind of do the geometry on it.
Your spaces are 19 foot deep too. They only need to be 18 here.
I think they are 18.
They're 19 dimension 19 on the drawing.
I think we were trying really hard to stay in two park
You ought to, but you need that.
We got a lot of little site planning things that I think are gonna accumulate. And the site plan is gonna be a lot different, not a lot different, but it's gonna be significantly different. Because the drainage, the open space, the turnaround, so I think it's gonna be different. And I think it very well could impact the number of units that are gonna be on here.
Well, the biggest thing is make money on a real estate development. You only got to get 10,000 square feet of leasable space per acre. With two buildings only, not three, just two, you're getting 15,600 square feet on this acre, less than an acre. So you're gonna make out like a champ monetarily with two buildings. You don't need three. That's pushing the limit too far. No, I know, but they still got a viable project with two buildings versus three.
Maybe one of them's 2 stories instead of 3 or something, but I think that site planning is gonna impact that count. Yeah. Yeah. Any other site comments before we move to architecture?
Yeah, I know you gotta work this out with the engineer, but I'm curious. I know you're trying to keep the disturbance less than half an acre, but are you not within half mile of a receiving water body that would require detention?
So less than a half acre, even if you're within a half mile of the water, it's a lesser threshold as far as DEC sports concerned.
Okay.
So more than a half acre. Then that's when the detention requirements.
Understood. And Tim said there was fill in the floodway. Are you using floodway and floodplain interchange? It's a floodplain, not a floodway, not a floodway.
Yes, floodplain.
But it still has that compensatory storage requirement.
Yeah, I understand. You can't build in a floodway though.
32 is the one location. The site is above that.
Is any part of any of these buildings in the floodplain?
Floodplain, yes, one back corner of that one building, right there, the one that's highlighted in red. That piece will be in the floodplain.
Are you gonna try to get a low MAR? Would it make sense not to flip this thing around 180? Yeah, but you're still in the floodplain. You still have to get flood insurance even if you're above floodplain.
Yeah, but I mean, let's just look at to the left. After you go up one more screen, there's a curve that shows the delineation of
Yeah, understood.
that area. And this, the site got a little aggressive with a number of things. We shifted the buildings around before. We can shift them around again to see if we can account.
It's not a requirement for me. I'm just suggesting if you can avoid the floodplain, it's always a good idea to avoid the floodplain.
But as you said, we were above the flood level with the finished floor, so looking at it, contained fill and plan on grade.
Well, they've got to mitigate the wetlands as well too, right?
We'll just pay to do that, right?
Yeah.
Pay the mitigation bank. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. for your
Well,
comment.
let's talk about architecture. Yeah.
I think the architecture looks good. I got no comments. Looks good.
Are you a builder?
5-year professional degree from the School of Architecture, Clemson University.
Something professional. I know most of you are professional.
Degree in building construction, however.
I am an architect. I think you have to, you reference some Somerville precedents or atmosphere. I don't see it on the detail, and maybe you're not there yet, which is fine.
Oh, it is constant.
Right, right. So I think if you start bringing in some more detail. I also have issues with the solid massing of the stacked bathroom walls. I mean, those are very brutal, especially that corridor. You know, I'm hoping that all the material is natural material, not painted ephes or ephes made to look? Okay.
It's all either gonna be natural stucco. We looked at brick, we would love to use brick, but I think the brick was gonna push budget a little bit, so we're looking at a hardy material, cementitious siding, panel material. In association with stucco.
And are all three buildings basically the same aesthetics?
They are, but they're not the same orientation.
Right.
They are
So
the
have you
same-
looked at different aesthetics to create a more variety?
No. We looked at trying to create one building composition, try to give it some uniqueness on all four sides so that we could rotate them on the sites. That's to give it some visual variation. That was kind of the objective. I think that's why the design, quite frankly, is a little bit more intricate than some of the other standard box like apartments that you see that just sort of look so typical. I mean, that's why we have so many different changes of plane. It's articulated quite a bit. I mean, it's not an inexpensive build or compliance build, but I think it can have a great visual impact. That was really what we were trying.
Are you confident in a walk-up apartment scenario that people are actually gonna use that garbage? The garbage container, the remote garbage container?
Oh, yes.
You're confident that will happen?
We were in Charleston. Everybody there is compelled to have to use those small little containers. It's just a fiasco.
Or I see another building. Provide like garbage in each door. And every 2 times per week he's doing a clean. Probably we're gonna provide like something like that. Because we're gonna have more opportunity for the people who's gonna live in the apartment. Everybody is like outside the door, and I can find.
Understood. Yeah.
And that's what most. I mean, I realize this is a small apartment complex, but it still has.
Right.
You have consolidated trash as opposed to what everyone was alluding to, is bins everywhere. Cause then you gotta find a place for bins.
They sit around.
I don't have any issue with that. I think it looks like you're showing 2 dumpsters. You can probably do,
Yeah, we
just
did
do
one of
one.
those.
and you can just have, lose the space. They'll just come more often. That's all you gotta do. Instead of coming once a week, they'll come twice a week. My initial reaction when I saw the architecture, I saw immediately that it was kind of this Charleston single, which I like, but it looks really tall. You know, and I'm not used to seeing 3 foot tall or 3-story Charleston singles. But I do think having density is a good thing, you know, and I think we're gonna start seeing more of these that are taller buildings. I think we gotta accept that that's gonna happen, right? So I'm not necessarily pushing back on the height, but I did have to think through that a little bit. I'm kind of questioning why you don't just join those 2 vertical buildings as one instead of having that kind of 10-foot open space or whatever it is between them, but I'm sure you have a reason for that. But that,
Mostly light and
and the,
you only have 36 feet, 9-foot ceilings, 1 foot of structure between each level.
you don't have to, just, you know, initial reaction. And then the other thing that kind of was the outlier for me on this, and you can't really see it in this aerial as much, maybe it's up 1, Tim, is that, that's not this, well, you can see it on, yeah, on perspective 3 on the lower left. That white box that goes up, it looks like maybe it's a stairwell. To me, it looks like a little bit of a outlier or something. It just kind of doesn't necessarily match what else is going on, because we've got the gables on that and the darker color. So that seems a little odd. Can't put my finger on it. I'm not an architect, but it does seem like something just doesn't seem right. Maybe it's just because it's a flat wood box that goes all the way up.
It was originally.
It may be dark, maybe it was dark, but
Internally, we went back and forth, it's gonna be open, we talked about it in plays. Most of the apartments that we've seen and done and reviewed the entryway is a little protected.
Yeah,
You know, so,
sure.
You know, the rental on this is probably gonna exceed what's there now adjacent to it, I would think.
I think,
And so we were trying to, bring it up in caliber just a little bit.
Sure.
Against the coloration of materials, we fully expect at some point to find the colors, find the material, provide sample board.
sure.
Um,
This is just a conversation.
start.
This is just a conversation because it's conceptual and
Well,
we get that.
because the site was so interesting, because the site was hand in glove with what we suggested to the clients that they could put out a product. We thought the 3 buildings were a match. And we did get a little aggressive with the parking, but we thought that in today's environment, it didn't make sense to do 1.2 or 1.4 spaces.
The
Short site.
the only other comment I would have architecturally is I would like to see some brick, even if it's only on the first floor or just, and it can be the thinner brick or whatever, but to me, that is a Charleston single, because they stuck it over them later. But I would like to see some brick elements in there, because you're using a lot of the Charleston themes. But I think there's one major one that's not used, and that's use of brick. And Somerville's a brick town as well. And I'm not suggesting 3 stories of brick. It's just some.
Just to your point,
Or maybe it's, or maybe it's just on the Charleston single portion, just that first floor, maybe.
maybe it's your point, maybe it's 9 feet, so it's a
Right.
base.
Right, it's 1 story.
So it's full story,
Mhm.
and then maybe the stuff up there will look a little better to you. I mean, again, this concept, we're asking for some variance on setbacks.
Get the buildings right and all this stuff right, I think we can work stuff out with like general thought. Greg had some comment, he had some concerns about this project. Unfortunately, he didn't say what they were, so.
I think there are too many buildings, needs to be 2.
I think the masses, it's very massive. You may want to do some daylight studies, some sun studies. To see the shadows and, the real impact of something this large on each other, on the site.
Are you talking about three-story manor?
It's just a very massive, dense complex. So I'm just suggesting,
3 stories,
no, I'm not,
and it's got so much articulation. I don't understand the comment about. That's why it has some relation, so that it provides shade and shadow and balconies and patios, privacy and separation. I mean,
It just seems, for me, it's a little bit out of context. If this were downtown Somerville and it was super high density, which 3-story downtown Somerville would be higher than any building I can think of around here. It's slightly out of character for the area that it's in. So this 3-story and everything's to the max. We barely have room for landscaping. We barely have room for a car to turn around. Barely room between the buildings. It's a lot of stuff on one site. So.
You've put a lot of thought in, you can tell.
Yeah.
The designs are good.
Yeah.
It looks nice.
You did a
but
great-
It's a lot on that piece of
You
property.
did a great job. It's just there's a lot
we're
on.
trying to this is
I
a
know,
small project.
I know.
Sure.
We're trying to maximize the density that we can, provide a vital, give it some vitality in park. And I know that it's max, but it seems to me like most of the projects we work on today, the setback to setback, it works.
Everybody is.
Well, we will, we're expecting what, this is a non-voting.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
All of the stormwater gonna be underground. So that's what we're trying to stay under that acre threshold. We said if we were above the acre threshold, that was one thing we would look at is underground underneath the park. Sorry, if I'm above that acre.
Yeah, we use, chamber systems, well, we have 30-foot buffers. Oh, we got 42,000.
Answer. We got 0.496 of an acre, open space.
We got about 40,000 square feet. Little more than 40,000.
Right.
You got 4,200 square feet of open.
Well,
So I doesn't get you that half acre.
30-foot setback, 30-foot, 20 feet, 20 feet. 15 feet.
Plus all the, and
around, there's gonna be some.
Well, that's pretty long.
Sorry, I'm missing it. There it is. 42.4% open.
I think even on the Wooten Drive side, where you're majority, the sidewalk in the setback, you're gonna have a disturbed area. So that's what I'm saying.
And we're taking all the trees down. That disturbs the whole site. Whole site's being disturbed. But like Phil said, Bill, that's for y'all to work out with staff. So I think the site plan, when you come back, is gonna be different. Pretty different, so. Well, we appreciate y'all coming. Off to a good start. I know a lot of details to work out. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Good luck with it. Good night, Dave. Thank you all.
Next is 113 Parkway Avenue, overflow parking for a vet clinic.
Yes. So this is a request for preliminary and final approval for an overflow parking area for the adjacent vet clinic, which is now, I believe, the Blue Pearl or something along those lines, vet clinic. Property zone GB, general business. It's currently a vacant wooded site. A surface parking lot is a permitted use in GB zoning. The parking lot, as stated above, is for overflow parking for the vet clinic next door. A large portion of the property will remain undisturbed at the front of the property, providing screening from the Berlin-Myers Parkway. A tree removal permit and tree protection board approval are both required. There will be a pedestrian connection to the vet clinic. Detention is located in the center of the lot. Landscape screening is being proposed along Parkway Ave, and this screening meets the requirements of section 8.5.2. And the plan is showing a 10-foot wide landscape screen area, and minimum is 8. So I think we're in good shape there. I believe we have the applicant here and we can turn it over to them.
Good afternoon. Just like as Tim was saying, there's a lot of existing vegetation on the front end facing Berlin G that we're intending to remain. We're only serving the back half of the lot to propose an overflow parking lot for the vet clinic next door. There's in addition to the parking, there's a sidewalk connection to a side access doorway to the neighboring vet clinic. We do have, I believe it's 0.7 acres of disturbance. And so this is going to be a full MS4. We just want to come to you to make sure that just conceptually speaking, there wasn't any issues with a gravel lot neighboring this site.
The only question I would have is there an opportunity to tie the parking lot into the existing Blue Pearl instead of going on to Parkway Ave? Just to eliminate a curb cut on the road there.
What's all this here though? It's parking.
Almost looks like underground detention or something.
We can take the time to examine that. My knowledge of that wasn't something that was previously examined. I do see that there was some existing underground detention where I see a possible connection could be made, so I'll just have to evaluate sensitivity, I guess, of that area there. What type of existing asphalt is there, what kind of traffic it can handle. What kind of.
Can you turn your mic on?
I'm sorry.
Mike,
It's on, he's just not quite
Am I
close
not
enough.
a
That
little too
one's
far
not.
away. I
Yeah.
apologize.
To jump in, I'm sorry, during the TRC for this, I believe it was discussed that the reason why they're leaving that screen up front and this whole area and moving it to the back is for the possibility that in the future there might be expansion or another building up front there. So, or it could be sold for development by somebody else. The parking lot would already be ready to go and installed, so on and so forth. So having that curb cut would match that thought process. I don't know if you were part of that discussion, but I seem to remember that from our technical review committee discussion a while back.
Well, it's not a deal killer for me. It's just a thought. So, yeah.
I don't have any issues with this.
Any other comments?
I think we're move on.
Yeah. Okay. Is that a motion for approval?
Yes.
Was there a second?
I'll second.
All
Well,
those,
this is consensual, right?
no, they're asking for preliminary and final.
Preliminary final.
Yep. Further discussion? Okay, all in favor of preliminary and final approval, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great job. Good luck.
Yes, good night.
Thank you.
Tell them you had to fight with us.
I'll do that.
All right.
All right, so Hart made a motion.
Motion for adjourn.
Robert seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Well,